Hello and welcome to day 22 of 100 Days of Soulforce. My name is Joseph Arnold and today we're going to be talking about open focus. Open focus as opposed to narrow focus, as opposed to getting really tight and narrow and having a really small area of focus, which can happen when we're doing difficult things or things we believe to be difficult. And that narrow focus, that constricted tunnel vision kind of focus, actually makes your body super tight. And that tension then interferes with that thing you're trying to do. But because you have this really narrow focus, you may not realize the extent to which your body is getting tight. You might only feel it afterwards, like, oh wow, I was all crunched up there while doing this or that thing. And like, why am I so sore? So a big part of excess tension that you might experience while you're playing music or who knows, dancing, or if you're doing comedy, or if you just reading, you're using your phone, threading a needle, washing your dishes, talking to somebody, looking at something a long distance away, or I don't know, putting your shoes on, like tying your shoes, reading a book, writing by hand, definitely looking at something on a screen, like trying to find something, like, where's the cursor on the screen? I can even feel myself getting smaller just thinking about that. So, yeah, we're going to be taking a look at the difference here between a narrow focus and open focus, and I'm going to be talking about what open focus is as a practice, and we'll do a guided experience here together. And of course, you get some homework to take away. And this is something that's really easily doable. This is something you can really easily do at home. It's something I teach to all of my students because it's really powerful to notice the difference. And it also relates to the doing mode and the receiving mode video that I made not long ago. So we'll get to that in a minute. Okay, so again, my name is Joseph Arnold. I'm a violinist. I'm an Alexander Technique teacher, and this open focus bit has a lot to do with Alexander Technique. And I'm also the founder of the Soulforce Arts Academy. And one of the reasons that open focus is really important for Soulforce Arts is that again, having to do with releasing excess tension and entering more into the receiving mode. Soulforce Arts is actually based on, well, there's a couple ideas. So, at the very least, when you release excess tension in your body, then everything you do gets better. You feel better, you function better, you play better, you sound better, you move better. Everything gets better. Your technique becomes more fluid, effortless, right? So this is like taking the e-brake off in your car, right? That's so important. And on another level, having a more open focus allows more creative ideas to come up, and it puts you into a different mode of being altogether, what I call the receiving mode. And this is where deep listening happens. And deep listening is crucial for just life in general, but certainly for the performing arts. The more deeply you can listen, the more deeply you invite your audience in to listen. So it goes deep. So anyway, here we go. We're going to get to it. So what is open focus? Open focus is actually a practice that I found. I read the book by Les Fehmi, Fehmi, Open Focus. He has a couple books out, and it's an attentional practice, attentional. So it's a practice that's the difference of going between having a narrow focus, focusing on a very small sense of space, your attention being focused in a kind of constricted way, versus having a more open focus and finding a balance in various times. So there's a whole series of practices around this, the guided meditations that Les Fehmi does, and I have some open focus style guided meditations on my YouTube channel here, so you can check those out, and we'll be doing a little bit of that today. So that's basically what it is. So like, how much space are you paying attention to? And it just so happens, for whatever reason, that paying attention, even peripherally, to a larger sense of space just relaxes your nervous system. Makes you more alert but relaxed. Relaxed readiness. So, yeah, let's get right to the practice, or at least the one way that I introduce all my students to this, which has to do with imagining threading a needle. Okay? So even if you've never done this before, you can imagine that you have this little tiny needle and this thread, and there's that hole inside that needle. Like, wow, that's a small hole. So why don't you put your hands up and take a look at your imaginary needle and thread, and just like, wow, that's a really tiny hole, and this thread's kind of big, so how are you going to get that through there? And imagine trying to put the thread through that tiny, missed, there's that tiny hole, try to get that thread in there, missed again. How do you get it in there? Okay, so notice what's happening to your sense of space. Is it getting smaller or bigger? Right, usually for people it's getting smaller, right? And what happens to your body as your sense of space was getting smaller? Usually it gets tighter. You can see this. This is what the head forward posture that chiropractors are always getting on our case about. This is what happens. The perceived seat of the self inside the head moves towards this very small space. You can see this with people on their phones, or like looking at something in the distance, looking at your music stand, or even if you're like you're a dancer or something like that, and you're doing something with your foot, and all your attention goes to your foot, and your sense of space gets smaller, the rest of your body's going to get tighter. So this is the kind of dynamic we're exploring here. Okay, so then the opposite of a small sense of space, obviously, is a large sense of space. So now look around you. Look up, and either side, look behind you, look below you, and above and all around it. Just notice what that does to your body. What does having a large sense of space do for your body? I notice I get more at ease. So even now, turning your attention back to the screen, can you keep this larger sense of space? Can you just remind yourself, oh yeah, I'm here in this space. So this is what we're going to do next. Sometimes we do need to pay attention to very specific things. It happens all the time, actually. So it's really useful to be able to balance focal attention and peripheral awareness. Focal attention is the center. Peripheral awareness is on the background. And what we typically do in our society is completely cut out the periphery and only keep the focus. But again, if you do that, then you're missing certain really important things, like what's happening in the rest of your body. Especially, if you're playing, that's so important. Your body is your instrument. What happens with your quality of movement entirely determines the quality of your performance. Right? A violin can't play itself, etc. And so it's so important to be able to monitor your quality of movement while you're doing this. So we have a balance between focal attention and peripheral awareness. So let's try that. Here's the needle and thread again. Okay, we still have the needle and thread, but we also have space all around us. This is happening in a room. The needle and thread are in the neighborhood that you live in. All right, there's still the sky above you, and there's still the ground below you, and there's still space on either side, the whole neighborhood on either side of you and behind you. So now try imagining threading that needle again, this time including and not excluding the space all around you. That little tiny hole is still there, that thread is still there, but it has a much bigger context. The sense of space that you can take with you into that experience is much, much bigger. So what do you notice this time? Did you get freer or tighter? To me, I noticed I was freer this time, certainly than the first time. And I also noticed that there were definitely times when my attention wanted to get smaller, and I noticed that my body got tighter at those times. And then when I reminded myself, oh yeah, here's the space, here's the space, here's the space, I had to remind myself a bunch of times, right? But when I did that, I got freer. So let's try something else here. Let's do something with your feet. So with your feet on the ground, why don't you just tap your feet one after the other? Okay, and maybe go, actually, instead of just 1, 1, 1, 1, go 1, 1, go 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and then 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And now we're going to really mix it up. We're going to go 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we have this activity. It's a little bit contrived, and maybe you're able to follow me there, maybe not. But just notice what was happening with your attention. Were you getting tighter, smaller, or were you able to stay big? Was your focus more on the screen and what is he talking about? Were you tapping your feet, and was your attention going all the way down to your feet only, or maybe kind of switching back and forth between your feet and the screen? And what might have been happening in your body as a result of that? So let's try that one more time. So take a look around you, above, behind, below, and now let's try that 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3 pattern with tapping your foot, and this time remember the space around you. Here we go. 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and then again 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. All right, and remembering the space around you. One more time. 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So what was that like for you? Excuse me. So the times you'll be tempted to narrow in are the times when there's higher demand on your system, whatever that might be. There's a bigger stimulus happening. So it's when something's new, something's fast, something's awkward, difficult, under time pressure, under social pressure, or you have a lot of eyes on you, where there's just a lot of different things to manage all at once. Right? Any of these situations, each of these situations happens a lot in performance arts and in life in general. Each of these could be a moment when you're either constricting yourself more, narrowing your sense of space, or having a larger sense of space. And that might make all the difference for you in your performance, just how you feel, how ready you feel, how at ease you feel, your stage presence, certainly your quality of movement. So, this is one of the foundational skills and explorations that I share with all my students. So, finally, here's a bit of homework for you. Pick one activity you do every day. It could be making your coffee, or brushing your teeth, or just walking to work, or practicing something with your craft, whatever it might be. Choose one thing and really make a practice of noticing what size of space that you notice while you do this. At first, you don't even have to try to have a big sense of space. That might even be too much. Just notice what actually happens. Just notice, if you get really narrow, just notice that you get narrow. And if there's times when you open up, just notice that there are times when you open up. And then you can experiment with just looking around you first before you do it. And maybe you'll even get good enough so you don't even need to look around yourself. You just can remember the sense of space. And then you bring that with you. You might do a little pause, remember the sense of space, and then get into whatever it is that you're doing. And see if you can do that within this larger sense of space, receiving yourself in the space as you do this. Receiving yourself in the room as you play. Receiving yourself in your kitchen as you make your coffee. All right, and just let me know what happens. You can do that in the comments here, or send me an email. You can go to my website, josepharnold.com, and also sign up for my email list and blog. And yeah, and if you want to learn more about how to do this and how to apply this to your creative practices, you could take lessons with me too. And again, you can just reach out to me at josepharnold.com. I live in Philadelphia, but I also teach online if you're further away. Okay, see you tomorrow.